Hello everyone and welcome to 4KB Shorts Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program. Now originally when I started playing Kerbal Space Program I was not going to do a Let's Play. I had started to, and then I thought, you know, I learned about doing these from watching other people's Let's Plays and I don't want to go through and just mimic them. But I've been having so much fun with this, especially with the new mods that I've downloaded, that I've decided to do a rescue mission Let's Play. And a lot of people have, I've noticed that a lot of people have said don't leave your Kerbins behind. I watch other people's Let's Play and they're like, everyone's constantly complaining to me to rescue my Kerbins, and you gotta love the little guys, they're crazy. But we're going to do a rescue mission, and this is not going to be a normal rescue mission. Because I have, if you notice, I have 14 flights running. And the reason it's not going to be a normal rescue mission is I'm not going to bring the Kerbins back. I'm going to leave them at their location. In this case, the location is Duna. Now, if you notice, the target is Event 3. This had originally been meant to land on Eve, but I had screwed up the phase angle and I ended up on Duna. Now, as you can see from the debris, when I landed hard on at an angle. No offense to the build, but the build itself is actually extremely unstable. So when I hit, even at a low velocity, low enough not to destroy any of the parts, everything broke apart. And so I have 3 Kerman, all very happy, Kerbals, Kerman, whichever, sitting around just on Duna. And these are the only 3 I have on Duna, and there's nobody else on Duna, just these 3 guys, but they're basically useless just sitting here. Now, since I had originally just recently downloaded the Mark II and Mark IV rover, which I've done a tutorial on and have uploaded for everyone to see, these 2, I am going to send one to Duna for the purpose of having these 3 guys a vehicle, because this thing can carry 4 Kerman, so if I were to take 2 out from the initial launch, I would then have space for 3 more in there, and then I can drive around Duna all I want. But before we do that, I want to explore Duna, and in order to explore Duna, you have to map Duna. So we're going to build a mechanical Jeb map, because I have the ISA mod. And for those who don't know, the ISA mod allows you to use, as soon as I can find it again, use the ISA mapsat to map a planet. So we're going to build an unmanned probe, so to speak. Very simple, very basic probe. I can make it very complicated, but there's really no reason to. I'm looking for a specific fuel tank. There it is. Since I recently downloaded these, only very recently, I have lost, a lot of the parts have moved, so I haven't lost them, but I can't find them again. There we go. So there's our probe. And here's our mapsat. Now the mapsat actually causes drag, I think. Let's see how much drag this thing has on it. Oh, it's 0 drag. Okay, cool. Now I had made one for the moon, which I called the moon mapper. And the moon mapper was to make it look more, I guess you could say, to make it look more like a satellite. I put these on there, which have a drag of 0.05, and that's including in space. So every time I tried to adjust my trajectory, I ended up flopping sideways. So since this has 0 drag, it should not be an issue. I could add more than one to make it just visually connected, you know, just make it look futuristic, but I don't know how that will affect the map, and I don't want to launch this thing into space only to have it not function. So we're going to go ahead, and now I called the first one the moon mapper, and unfortunately I don't know of any D words that mean mapping, so we're going to call this the Duna Cartographer. And we'll save that, and this is our basic ship. This is all we need, and even with this, which should be enough to be able to adjust our orbit once we get there. But what I do need is I will absolutely need a way to get it there. So we will be doing that right now. Alright, now along with the basic information, I already have mechanical Jeb, that works. I will need the protractor. because that's how I find out my phase angles. Without that, I'm going to be sitting there going, oh no. So we're going to put that there. Does that have any drag? 1E to 0.5. I'm assuming that's so micro drag that you won't even notice. Okay, so now that should complete the actual pod. I have 63 seconds of delta V at full throttle. Should be more than enough to get me into a stabilized orbit if I do it right. Now, just so you know, I'm not very good at getting into correct orbits. My orbit will probably be off by 20 to 40 degrees, but we'll see if we can fix it from there. Since it's not landing, I don't need any parachutes or anything, so this is it. So, to start off, I need a decoupler. Now, most people use the ring decoupler. I don't. I like to use the TDM9 mechanical decoupler. I just like the way it looks better. It says it's weak, but it has an impact, well, it's fairly sensitive to call it, but has an impact tolerance of 40. Not a very high ejection force, but I don't care. I like the way it looks. It's very streamlined, so that's what I'm going to stick with. And since all this is together, I'll just leave all that at once and I'll be fixing this as I go along. So, multiple stages. See, I already know what made it to the moon okay. And I know you can get there with a pretty light. You can get to Duna with a pretty light build. But this is going to be experimentation. I'm kind of nervous because I am using stock parts a little bit. Mostly so because I can. Not because I actually have to. You know what? Without all this extra stuff, one second. What is it weigh? 2.61 tons. Huh. Well, you know what? Let's see. I'm going to use a very similar build to what I used to get the rat into orbit. Now that gives me a surface to weight ratio of 5.75, and I looked it up, and according to the internet, who never lies to me about anything, the internet is always telling me the truth about everything. According to the internet, the shuttle thrust to weight ratio is 3. And I know a shuttle can make it into space from Earth, so anything over 3 probably make it into space from Kerbin without too much difficulty. Now some of you who may watch other Let's Players may recognize what I'm doing right here. This is the asparagus system. And it's going to take a little bit to build. But this is probably going to be the full of our rocket. The whole thing is going to be this right here. I might change that though, depending. But we'll have to see. I have 69 seconds. These numbers will change. The 69 seconds will change as I do some editing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut here really quick because you don't need to really watch. I'll tell you what I've done when I get there, but you don't really need to see me put this together because this is probably a build everyone knows about. So 1 minute and I'll be right back. Okay, I have made some changes as well as the additions. If you notice, I put a lot of space tape on, and that's to hold these together because it will flop around. And then I've added the yellow tubes, the fuel tubes for the asparagus system, which all feed into the center rocket. Now what I did for a change is I removed the large center rocket and added the smaller one, because this is going to be our deep space rocket, not so much a launch rocket. But that has kept our surface to weight ratio above 3.31, which is nice. Now if you notice, I have a lot, 23, 34, 65 are my thrust, are my delta V times. Now that will change as I drop weight and drop fuel. But if you notice, this one has a 436 second fuel length, and that's our main body. So as long as we can get into orbit, this should take us straight to Duna without a problem. In addition, I added an additional fuel tank to the top here because I didn't like how this antenna was intersecting with this tube fuel tank. So I added that to raise it up a little bit. I think that may have changed our center of gravity slightly. Probably, but not that much. So we should be pretty stable. Now, I am going to add one additional set of items. wings. If you don't use wings, you're going to have a problem. Because without the wings, this thing will roll and flip and flop, and there's a chance it will happen anyway, because if you notice, this thing's it's a very snub rocket. It's not a very tall rocket, it's a very snub rocket. Mechanical jeb, as brilliant as it is for calculating thrusts and vectors and everything else, where I have the most problem with my rocket designs is during the 90-degree turn. As you begin the turn, and you'll probably see this, as it begins the turn, the whole thing will start to flip out, and because it's spinning and mechanical jeb's trying to figure out how to fix the angle, and then eventually I'm just flopping all over the place until the rocket flies apart. Because of that, I may have to take over manual control at that point, but once past that point, I can turn mechanical jeb back on and it will get me into orbit successfully. So this is going to be our first test build for our mapper. This is not our delivery system, this is just our mapper unit. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump out there and see if we can get this thing off into space. Yes, please, clear launch pad. Alright, now I am launching from the platform, which is something I haven't done for a while. I did forget to put the limbs on there, I guess the extenders, but this thing's pretty stable, so it shouldn't wobble too much because it's not very tall. So what I like to do is I like to go full throttle, and let's go ahead and turn that on, because we're not going to the Mun, we're going to Duna. 109 degrees. Let's go ahead and quick save. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward time until this is closer to the phase angle we want, just in case this thing works. If not, we'll figure it out from there. So I don't want to have to wait and have you guys get epileptic fits by this thing flashing with the sun going around at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so I'm going to pause here for a minute, and then we'll be right back. Alright, after a lot of warping at 100,000, I did get us down to 1 degree, which is where I like to sit when I'm going into orbit, just in case. I like to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. So, full throttle, engage ascent autopilot, which I may have to disengage at 10,000 meters, but we'll see. And then, hopefully I set everything up right, so we will launch. Now I have this set to auto stage. I don't know if I want to keep that, but we'll see. It was working for me fine before, so we'll see. And now let's launch. See, and this is the reason I really like mechanical jet, because it knows how much speed you're going to need versus fuel use, so it's not wasting fuel and time and everything else, dumping that into the atmo. Two and one, and it should stage here. There it is. Okay, get rid of those. And so my service to weight ratio usually drops a little bit. Right now we're okay. Still not at full throttle, which is good. If this thing has to push full throttle to get me into orbit, that's when I know that my rocket design is not as efficient as it should be. My rat delivery system was like that. It barely got me into orbit. It was actually fairly bad. Okay, now here comes the moment of truth. 10,000 and the rollover. And we're spinning a little bit, but Jeb seems to be handling it. Nope, 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 nope. He's not handling it well. I'm going to have to take over. And even I'm fighting it really bad, but I should be able to keep it centered more. We're going to switch to map really quick as soon as I get this thing level and stable, and I think I'm not going to be able to. Come on. Come on. Alright. Up, 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 up. Because I know I'm losing it. Where are we? Alright, there we go. I try to keep my speed about where Mechanical Jeb wanted it. I could full throttle this, but I'm trying to be efficient like it would be. But yeah, I'm fighting this heavily. That's where my problem comes in. But I should be okay. Getting better at least. As long as I can hold it in position until we get to 100,000, or roughly 100,000. Losing it again. And engage. Now, I'm spinning like crazy. But as long as nothing broke off. Okay, I lost one of my wings. And Jeb is going bat crazy. I lost one of my wings. I'm hoping that won't affect me too badly, because of the auto eject. It tore one of my wings off. Now he's going. Now Jeb will fast forward me. Nice little flip flop there. And we'll see how this affects our final burn at whatever range I happen to make it to. 105. So that's what we'll be going to. Okay, not terrible, not great. An okay launch. Still got a bit of fuel left. Got 14 seconds left in these last two burners, which is good. And then 436 seconds, more than enough in this one now that we're actually in or near orbit. No, we're not in orbit yet, we're pretty close. Okay, Jeb's having some stability issues, but I don't think... Yeah, that wing is pulling hard, but he's doing okay holding it in position. Whoa, what is going on here? Okay. Jeb, like I said, Jeb's having some trouble, but he seems, hopefully, he can get it stabilized. Alright, so Jeb has stabilized us in a rather eccentric, if functional orbit. And we're at 1 degree to Duna phase intercept, which is good. And I believe it's 2,400 meters per second. Or maybe 22. Somewhere in between. Now he should circularize the orbit. Or attempt to. Alright, cool. So, now we're in orbit. Yay, we're in orbit. I like to quick save a lot. I know a lot of people like, for the purpose of keeping the game realistic, they don't like quick saving and quick loading and whatnot. I do, because I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at spaceflight, I really am. And quick saving makes me feel better. I'm a player of the old school. Quick saving my game makes me feel a lot better. Okay, I'm going to tell Jed to keep us on prograde. And Jed will do that as best he can. And we have to loop around until this 1 degree has changed to 0. Now, we're only at 100,000, so we can only go up to 50 times speed. And I'm not sure how long that's going to take. It looks like it's going to take quite some time. So, because of that, let me slow us back down. Let Jeb get us back under prograde, because like, oh, gotta get to prograde. Because that's going to take quite some time to get that last degree off. Once again, I'm going to pause here, and I will see you back when we get this down to more like 0.1, or, you know, 0.01, or something similar to that.